The moment I discovered my wife's affair was like stepping into a nightmare I could never have prepared for. At first, I noticed small signs: her secretive phone calls, unexplained absences, and a distant look in her eyes that I couldn't place. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself that maybe work stress or personal issues were causing her behavior. But deep down, a gnawing unease refused to let me ignore the truth. Then, one evening, everything came crashing down. I saw a message on her phone, one that left no room for doubt. The words on the screen were enough to shatter the foundation of my world. It wasn't just betrayal. It was deliberate, ongoing, and cruelly calculated. I felt my heart pound, my chest tighten, and an overwhelming wave of disbelief mixed with anger washed over me. I couldn't comprehend how someone I had trusted, loved, and built a life with could have so little regard for my feelings or for our family. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, and every familiar object seemed alien in that moment. I remember pacing back and forth, trying to process what I had just learned, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been happening? How had I missed the signs? Was any part of our life together genuine? I wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers, but a part of me feared the confrontation would unleash more than words. It might trigger anger, blame, or even violence. My thoughts spiraled, mingling sorrow with rage, hurt with disbelief. My children's laughter in the other room felt painfully ironic. Their innocence seemed to highlight the betrayal even more. I realized that this discovery was not just about her actions. It was about the collapse of trust, the violation of the sacred bond we had promised to each other, and the end of the security I had always felt at home. For hours I sat in silence, trying to make sense of the impossible. I had to grapple with the emotional weight of betrayal while protecting my mental clarity, knowing that any rash decision could have lasting consequences. The betrayal was not just a fleeting mistake. It was a deliberate choice she had made at the expense of our family, and acknowledging that fact was excruciating. Every memory of our time together, every shared plan and dream, now felt tainted by her dishonesty. The emotional storm inside me was relentless, a mixture of heartbreak, anger, and the urgent instinct to protect what mattered most, my children. That night, I realized that discovery was only the beginning. The path ahead would require difficult decisions, immense courage, and a determination to navigate through betrayal without losing myself or compromising the safety and well-being of the children I loved more than anything else in the world. The moment of discovery was the spark that ignited a journey I never imagined I would take, a journey of confronting betrayal, reclaiming control, and ultimately finding a way to protect my family from the consequences of someone else's choices. The situation escalated far beyond what I could have anticipated. At first, I had hoped that confronting her with the truth would lead to a conversation, perhaps even an explanation, but it quickly became clear that the confrontation would not be civil. The moment I brought up the affair, her reaction was far from remorseful or apologetic. Instead, anger and defensiveness took over. What started as raised voices soon spiraled into something more threatening. She began yelling, throwing accusations, and blaming me for imagined shortcomings in our relationship. The verbal barrage was relentless, and it carried a sharp edge of hostility that made the air between us feel suffocating. I tried to remain calm, to reason with her, but every attempt was met with further aggression. It wasn't just words. She began moving violently, slamming doors, knocking over furniture, and gesturing in ways that made me fear for my safety. My heart raced, adrenaline pumping, as I realized that the person I had shared my life with could now be a direct threat to me. There was no logic, no negotiation, only the raw intensity of anger fueled by guilt and deflection. I had to quickly assess my surroundings, noting potential hazards and considering ways to protect myself and our children. It became painfully obvious that this was no longer a discussion about feelings or reconciliation. It was a dangerous situation that required immediate action. The emotional weight of the affair was now compounded by the real, tangible threat of violence. Every instinct screamed that I needed to act decisively. I could not allow the environment to escalate further, not with my children present, their safety and well-being suddenly at the forefront of my mind. The sense of betrayal was now intertwined with fear. The person I had trusted implicitly, the person who had once been my partner and confidant, had transformed into someone unpredictable and volatile. Each movement, each word from her, carried the potential to ignite a more dangerous reaction. I realized that staying would only magnify the risk. The house that had once been a place of comfort and security had become a minefield. The combination of emotional betrayal and physical aggression created a cocktail of tension that left no room for compromise. I understood with painful clarity that self-preservation and protection of my children had to come first. The realization was bitter, that love and trust could no longer safeguard us. In that moment, every decision became about immediate safety, about calculating the right steps to avoid harm while maintaining composure in the face of unpredictable hostility. It was a brutal awakening to the harsh truth that betrayal could manifest in ways far beyond emotional pain, and that survival sometimes meant stepping away from someone you once loved, no matter how difficult or heart-wrenching that choice might be. The violent outburst marked a turning point, cementing the urgent need to take action before the situation spiraled further out of control. In that moment, the instinct to protect my children became stronger than any fear, anger, or heartbreak I was feeling. All the emotions swirling inside me, betrayal, shock, sadness, and even lingering love, suddenly faded into the background as a singular priority emerged, keeping my children safe. I knew that remaining in that house, even for a single moment longer, was too risky. The violence I had witnessed, combined with the unpredictable emotional state my wife had displayed, made it clear that our home could no longer be a place of safety. My mind raced with the logistics of leaving, how to gather the children quickly, what essentials to take, where to go, and how to shield them from the emotional chaos unfolding around us. I realized that hesitation could have dangerous consequences. Action had to be immediate, deliberate, and decisive. I started with calm but firm instructions to the children, speaking in a way that masked the fear I felt inside. Their eyes mirrored confusion and concern, but I knew that showing panic would only heighten their anxiety. I had to remain steady, projecting the sense of control they so desperately needed in that moment. Every step of the process required careful planning: how to exit the house safely, which route to take, and how to avoid confrontation. I grabbed the essentials: the children's belongings, identification, and the few personal items that could be quickly carried. But even as I focused on the practical details, the emotional weight of what I was doing pressed down heavily. I was leaving the home I had built, separating from a partner I had once trusted, and stepping into uncertainty with my children in tow. The thought of the upheaval and the questions they would inevitably ask about why we were leaving filled me with dread, but it also reinforced the necessity of my actions. I reassured myself that courage in that moment was not about confronting my wife or seeking retribution. It was about creating a safe space for the children, shielding them from harm, and reclaiming a sense of stability amidst chaos. As we exited the house, I felt a mix of sorrow and resolve. Sorrow for the family unit that had been broken by betrayal, and resolve to protect and nurture my children no matter the circumstances. Driving away, I looked at their faces in the rear-view mirror, feeling a deep sense of responsibility and love. Their trust in me at that moment became both a motivation and a reminder that my decisions had to prioritize their well-being above all else. The journey of leaving was not just a physical act. It was a symbolic break from toxicity, a declaration that safety, love, and parental duty outweighed fear, attachment, or lingering hope. Reconciliation. Every mile we put between ourselves and that house was a step toward security and emotional preservation. In that decision to walk away, I embraced the reality that protecting my children sometimes meant making incredibly difficult choices, facing uncertainty, and stepping into a new chapter with determination, resilience, and unwavering commitment to their safety and future. Leaving the house with my children marked the beginning of a new and deeply challenging chapter in our lives. The immediate consequences of my decision hit me with full force as we drove away, the familiar streets of our neighborhood now feeling foreign and distant. There was no turning back. Every mile increased the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. The practical challenges were overwhelming. Where would we stay? How would we manage finances? And how would I explain the situation to my children in a way that wouldn't traumatize them further? Each question demanded a solution, and each solution had to balance safety with emotional stability. The emotional consequences were equally daunting. My children were confused, scared, and asking questions I didn't have immediate answers for. Their young minds were trying to process a reality far beyond their years, and I had to remain composed to prevent panic or further distress. The knowledge that our lives had irrevocably changed settled heavily on me. I had to navigate not only my own heartbreak and sense of betrayal, but also the fear and uncertainty radiating from my children. Every decision I made in that moment, from where to park the car to how to keep them calm, carried the weight of their emotional well-being. Beyond the immediate practicalities, there was the looming presence of legal and social consequences. Leaving a home under such circumstances, especially with children, could lead to questions from authorities, friends, and family. I had to be prepared to explain our actions without exposing my children to further emotional turmoil, while also ensuring our safety from a spouse whose behavior had proven unpredictable and violent. The separation was not just physical. It was an emotional and social rupture that demanded careful navigation. Friends and relatives had opinions, some supportive, others judgmental, and I had to filter these external pressures while prioritizing our immediate needs. The sense of isolation was acute, but it also reinforced the importance of self-reliance, resilience, and decisive action. At the same time, I had to consider the long-term consequences of the separation. My children's emotional development, our living arrangements, and the potential for reconciliation or continued conflict were all factors that would shape our future. Planning for these consequences while remaining grounded in the immediate reality required mental strength and careful foresight. I realized that the act of leaving was only the beginning. The aftermath demanded constant vigilance, emotional support, and the creation of a safe and nurturing environment amidst the chaos left behind. Each day brought new challenges, emotional outbursts, logistical hurdles, and the lingering presence of betrayal, but also small victories, moments of laughter and trust with my children that reaffirmed the importance of our escape. The consequences of that pivotal decision would ripple through our lives for months and years, shaping the way we understood safety, trust, and resilience. Yet, despite the immense difficulty, the knowledge that we were moving toward protection, stability, and a future free from immediate harm brought a sense of purpose and resolve that carried us forward through the uncertainty. The journey of recovery after leaving was both painful and transformative, a path I had never imagined I would have to walk. In the immediate aftermath, the emotional weight of betrayal and separation pressed down on me relentlessly. Nights were the hardest when the house felt empty, and the silence forced me to confront the reality of what had happened. Grief, anger, and guilt often collided in waves that were difficult to navigate, and yet, through it all, I knew that my children's stability and emotional health depended on my ability to stay strong. Recovery was not just about healing my own heart. It was about creating a foundation where my children could feel safe, loved, and secure, despite the chaos that had engulfed our family. I focused on routines, ensuring that meals, school schedules, and bedtime rituals remained consistent. These small acts of normalcy were essential for their sense of security, and in turn, they helped me regain a measure of control over our lives. At the same time, I had to confront my own emotions. Therapy, support networks, and honest conversations with trusted friends became lifelines. I allowed myself to feel the pain of betrayal, but refused to let it define me or dictate my actions. Every tear shed and every difficult conversation was part of a process of rebuilding my identity, not just as a parent, but as an individual who had survived a profound violation of trust. Reclaiming control also meant establishing boundaries and planning for the future. Legal steps, custody arrangements, and financial stability became practical necessities that demanded attention and careful thought. Each challenge, no matter how stressful, reinforced my resilience. I began to see that survival was not simply about escaping danger. It was about transforming adversity into strength and purpose. Over time, the emotional fog began to lift, replaced by a renewed sense of self-respect and empowerment. I learned to recognize red flags, trust my instincts, and prioritize my family's well-being above all else. The children's laughter, once tinged with confusion or fear, slowly returned to genuine joy, a sign that our efforts to rebuild were taking root. Moments of connection, bedtime stories, shared meals, and simple conversations reminded me that love and trust could be nurtured anew, even after such a profound betrayal. Recovery also involved redefining my expectations for relationships and life. I understood that while the past could not be undone, it could serve as a guide for the choices I made moving forward. Forgiveness, in some form, became less about excusing wrongdoing and more about releasing the emotional hold of betrayal, so that I could focus fully on my children and my own growth. This journey was neither linear nor easy. Setbacks and difficult days were inevitable. Yet, each challenge met, each small victory achieved, contributed to a growing sense of resilience and self-reliance. In the end, the recovery process became a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the unbreakable bond between parent and child. It was a journey of reclaiming agency, rebuilding trust, and proving, both to myself and my children, that life could continue with safety, love, and hope, even after profound betrayal.